once again, I have some bad news, but I also have some good news. And so to start off with the bad news, the USPS strikes yet again. So since I started buying and selling comics online about a year and a half ago, I have had a love-hate relationship with the USPS. And I must admit, over the past 6 months, they've been pretty good. I haven't really had many complaints at all, but they have burnt through all the goodwill they earned with me over these past 2 weeks because of 3 separate screw-ups. So first of all, 2 weeks ago, they damaged a book that I had mailed out in a Gemini mailer, and they bent the mailer in half. And I've never had that problem before. I thought a Gemini mailer was about as safe as it could get when you come to ship comics, but somehow the USPS ended up bending that mailer in half. And thankfully, the guy on the other end was pretty cool. He realized that it wasn't my mistake, that I put it in a Gemini, and he said, yeah, he's never seen this happen before either. And so he accepted just a partial refund. And thankfully, it was just a low-value book, so I didn't lose a lot on it. And so it wasn't that big a deal, but now I have this stress of, well, what if I ship a $300 or $400 book and the same thing happens? Second of all, the schedule pickup function on the USPS website has been down all week. And I'm pretty sure it's not just here in Virginia, because I have seen a lot of people post in the USPS forums about it being down. And if you don't know, if you want to ship out a package, you can normally schedule through the USPS website a pickup so that you don't have to drive all the way to the post office to ship your package out. And it saves me a ton of time. And if I wasn't able to do that, I wouldn't sell nearly as many comics as I do, because it wouldn't be worth driving to the post office every time that I want to sell a $10 comic. And so I rely on that for my business. But this week I had about a $10 comic sell on eBay, and I tried to schedule it every day. And I've always got 3 days to ship it out by the settings that I have as a seller on eBay. And each day I tried to schedule a pickup and I couldn't. And so finally on the 3rd day, I was watching out for my mail carrier so I could try to run the comic out to her. But she drove off before I could get out there, and so I had to hop in my car and chase her down. And I've had to do that a few times before, because in the past, when I've scheduled these pickups, they forgot to give her the slip at the local post office. But that hadn't happened recently. But she's used to me having to chase her down in my car, because it's a lot easier to chase her down in my little subdivision for a few minutes than to drive the 15 minutes that it takes to get to the post office. And so I had to do that again, and just annoying. And I'm hoping the schedule pickup function gets set up quickly, so that I don't have to do that again or stress out about it or anything like that. But third of all, and what is probably the most frustrating, is that CGC shipped out 18 modern comics to me earlier this week, and they were supposed to get here at the latest today. And they have not shown up. And in fact, there haven't been any updates in the tracking for about 3 days. And all it tells me is that almost 3 days ago, they left Tampa and are in transit here. And who knows where the heck these things are at. And it's frustrating for a number of reasons. First of all, I've had these comics at CGC since January, and I'm super excited to finally see what they have. They include a couple of books from my childhood, and so I really want to know what grades they got, and I've been holding off checking online for the grades because I really want to be surprised, and I want to do an unboxing video, and it's so hard to wait. And speaking of that unboxing, it's also frustrating because that unboxing is what I was planning to do tonight for this video, and I don't have the comics to do that video with, and so I'm scrambling around trying to figure out some other content to put out. And third of all, even though I think they'll eventually get here, it is thousands of dollars worth of comics. And so, it's a little unsettling not to know where those comics are at. And, of course, CGC insures them. And you would think the USPS would be like, hey, this package has thousands of dollars of insurance on it. Maybe we really want to make sure they get to their destination quickly, but they haven't. And of course, again, I think they'll get here safely, but there's a couple of books, again, from my childhood that are just irreplaceable if something were to happen. And so, it's just got me a little bit nervous. But like I said, there is some good news. And so even though these comics from CGC that were supposed to get here today at the latest have not shown up, there's another group of books that I bought from a seller I found online that wasn't supposed to get here until tomorrow that actually got here a day early. And so I don't know what's going on. The USPS route from Florida to Virginia isn't working well, but apparently from Wisconsin to Virginia, those guys are on fire. And I got a bunch of Silver Age books that I'm really excited about, and I want to show them off to you. And again, it's from a new seller online, and I'm really thankful for these. And the one that I'm most excited about is this one, X-Men number 12, which of course contains the first appearance of the Juggernaut. And this is one of my favorite X-Men villains. And in fact, my plan for these books was to do one of my character key videos on the Juggernaut. But I was planning to do that next week, and I'm having to improvise here, so I'll just show these books off. But if you would be interested in a character keys video on the Juggernaut at some point, let me know in the comments, and I'll try to put one together. But I've always loved this character, mostly because I just feel really bad for him. If you know his story, he's actually the stepbrother of Charles Xavier, or Professor X, and his own dad actually treated his stepson, Professor X, better than he did Cain Marko, the Juggernaut. And I can't imagine how heartbreaking that would be. And so, of course, Cain lashes out at Professor X and bullies him. And so they had this kind of antagonistic relationship. And over time, Professor X ends up getting his mutant powers, while Cain Marko is just a human. Again, they're not biologically related, so he doesn't have this mutant gene. But while they're in the army, he finds this mystical gem that gives him the powers of the Juggernaut. And so later on, he ends up coming for revenge against Charles Xavier. And I've always thought their dynamic was pretty interesting because, of course, they're the epitome of mind versus body, where Professor X has obviously the strongest mind perhaps of all time, but he has a very frail body, while the Juggernaut is the opposite. He has this mighty body. And he's got a little, they portray him a little nicer these days, but always kind of, a little bit more of not the sharpest tool in the shed, I guess you'd say. And so that was always an interesting dynamic, I thought. And he's just cool. He's unstoppable and just a scary villain. And so it's a book I've always wanted in my collection. And out of all the books that I'm going to show you, not only is it my favorite, but I think it's the one that's in the best condition. Of course, when you're looking at Silver Age books, you got to kind of take what you can get. But this is one I'll be sending off to CGC. And with the clean and a press, I would love to see it get maybe a 3.0. Maybe it can get higher than that with the clean and a press. But regardless, it looks great. And I am super happy to have it to my collection. And I got one other X-Men key. We got X-Men number 28, which is the first appearance of the Banshee. And so, I'm not as big of a fan of the Banshee as Juggernaut, but it's still an awesome X-Man and their first appearance. And it's really interesting, I didn't know this until recently. When he first debuted, when he was using his powers, he looked more like an actual Banshee and Ghost. He doesn't usually have that look, or I don't think ever have that look now in modern times, but that's how he was first depicted. And then when he stopped using his powers, he turned back into the form that we kind of know today. And I don't know if they ever explained why he stopped taking this form in the comic books. If they did and you know the answer, let me know in the comments. Why did he stop looking like this Banshee? All right, so in addition to these X-Men keys, I got a couple of amazing Spider-Man keys. And as many of you know, I'm trying to put together a full run of Amazing Spider-Man. And so super happy to check a couple of early keys off the list. First of all, we've got Amazing Spider-Man number 37. And this contains the first full appearance of Norman Osborn. So the Green Goblin had debuted earlier, I think in issue number 16, but his alter ego, Norman Osborn, didn't appear until this issue. And the seller actually had 2 copies of it, so I picked up the second one as well. This one is definitely much more of a reader copy, but it's still a great book to have. And speaking of reader copies, this is definitely one, but it looks beautiful considering the condition it's in. It's Amazing Spider-Man number 39, and this book is significant because it's when the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, and Peter Parker learn each other's secret identities, and it's got this gorgeous Green Goblin classic cover. It's the first artwork on Spider-Man by John Romita, and again, this is definitely a reader copy. I think the whole spine is split, it's kind of taped together, and so it's definitely low grade, but the actual artwork looks really great considering the condition of the rest of the comic book. So because of those flaws, it was in a low grade, and so I was able to get a good deal on it, even though it presents very well. So very excited to add all these books to my collection. And so despite all the frustrations with USPS, I do have some things that I'm excited about, and hopefully those CGC books are going to come in the mail in the next day or two, and I'll be able to have an awesome unboxing for you next week. So hope you enjoyed and were entertained by my news. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, I'd appreciate if you'd consider doing so. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers, which will open up some new options for me on the YouTube platform. So please help me get there if you can. Like the video, comment below on any of the things we talked about. Tell me, what is your preferred service, USPS, FedEx, or UPS, or anything else you want to talk about with these books, or any books that you've been excited about. Thanks for watching, and look forward to the next one.